Hi everyone, this is LAI Yangchen. Today I'm going to present an introduction of my research article. Before that, I would like to talk about how I plan to write the introduction. Firstly, I do some literature review, which can help me to learn the background knowledge about the topic that I'm interested in. After that, I will know what problems still not being solved. In other words, I can find a gap in this research area, and then I will think about how to address the gap. For example, find the method that I can use to solve the problem, or the most important is that the data that I need to collect, because in the natural geography, the method and data are the most important things that we need to consider. Then let's move on. The title of my research article is the moisture sources associated with tropical cyclonic heavy rainfall over China. Intertidal variation. In this study, I want to use hybrid model to investigate the moisture sources associated with tropical cyclonic heavy rainfall over China, and I'm going to detect the interdecadal variation in this study. Besides this, since the ENSO can model the activity of tropical cyclones, so that I also take the ENSO impacts into consider when detected the interdecadal variation. Let's see that move 1, move 2, and move 3. This is the outline of the structure of this introduction. Let's see the move 1. In move 1, I need to establish the territory, and the first step, I use two sentences to claim the centrality of the introduction. The first one is extreme rainfall events has resulted substantial damage in different parts of China, and the second sentence is it's been examined that tropical cyclone-induced rainfall account for 35 to 60% of extreme rainfall over Southeast China. With those two sentences, I emphasize the importance of learning the extreme rainfall over China, and then I expand the topic to the impact of ENSO to tropical cyclones activity. The occurrences of extreme rainfall events are closely related to ENSO in El Nino years because of blah blah blah. And in this part, I introduced the background knowledge about the ENSO and their relationship with the tropical cyclone and the rainfall. After that, I introduced the water vapor transportation over China. Water vapor transported by atmospheric circulation is one of the most important process in the hydrological cycle, blah blah blah. In here, I claim the centrality of the water vapor is very important process in hydrological cycle to indicate that why we need to know where does the water vapor come from, or in other words, the moisture sources. The keywords in this article. And last, I did a literature review on this introduction. Aims to show the previous studies that try let's try to solve the problem about the moisture sources associated with rainfall. The trajectory models such as the high-speed single particle Lagrangian integrated trajectory and the Fracture have been widely used to analyze the atmospheric water vapor transport pathways and the moisture sources. Until now, I have finished the Move 1 and established the territory about the topic of moisture sources associated with tropical cyclonic heavy rainfall in China. And then let's see the Move 2 indicate the gap. While most of these studies focused on cases analysis and are important in reviewing the relationship between the rainfall and the blah blah blah. In the first part of this sentence, I conclude the previous studies, and then I indicate that few of them have investigated the interdecadal variation of moisture supply associated with tropical cyclonic heavy rainfall over China. In the second part of this sentence, I indicate the gap that less studies have investigated the interdecadal variation. And there's another thing that I want to mention is that the previous studies has identified two decadal shifts in the late 1980s and early 1990s of the two decadal shifts of the rainfall. The first one is after later 1980s, the summer rainfall decreased over South China and North China, and the second one is after 1990s, the rainfall over South China increased significantly. And the previous studies has mentioned that both decadal shifts are related to the abnormal moisture convergence. So that's why I think that the interdecadal variation of the moisture sources is very important in my research. And the next step is present justification. Therefore, we plan to examine the primary moisture sources and pathway associated to the tropical cyclone induced heavy rainfall and their spatial blah blah blah. Until now, I have finished the Move 2, indicate the gap. Let's see the Move 3. In Move 3, I will adjust the gap. Sorry, I will adjust the gap. The moisture sources and their contributions to extreme rainfall events during past decades will be identified to show their spatial and temporal distribution, and the interdecadal variation of moisture and its relationship with the changes of tropical cyclonic heavy rainfall during past decades will be detected. And just like I mentioned before, the ENSO is also a very important factor that impact the tropical cyclone activity and the rainfall distribution. So that I will also try to figure out whether the ENSO can impact the moisture transportation over China. In Move 3, I described the plan to adjust the problem to fill the gap, and let's see the linguistic figures that I have used in this introduction. The first one is it's been examined that tropical cyclone induced rainfall account for 35 to 60% of extreme rainfall over Southeast China. Here it's been, and that it's a 8 extra position followed by that clause. And the second one is which is related to the normal moisture convergence. This is a relative clause and used to add additional information about rainfall changes. And the third one is, for instance, this is a traditional phrase used as a parenthetical structure. And last, I would like to say that before this course, I just identified the research article as introduction, method, results, discussion, conclusion. And after learning this analysis method, I can identify the research article and establish a territory, introduce the gap, and adjust the gap. I think this structure is more easy for a new researcher to find a topic to learn, and more easy to construct an article. Thank you.